The doors of the assembly hall open before I am ready for them, and the sound that greets me is not applause. It is silence, the kind that presses against your ears like deep water. Thousands of alien eyes turn toward me at once, and I feel every one of them weighing what I am worth. My name is Daniel Cole. 7 months ago, I was a line officer nobody outside my unit could name. Now the Empire calls me the hero of 7 battles, the human who should have died 7 times and did not. I walk down the long aisle in a dress uniform that still feels borrowed, and I keep my eyes forward because looking anywhere else makes my chest tighten. The Chancellor waits on the high platform, wrapped in robes the color of a bruised sky. Around him stand the War Council, the beings who decide which fronts live and which are abandoned. I have fought under their orders without ever standing this close to them, and something about the distance closing makes my skin prickle. The Chancellor lifts a hand, and the hall grows quieter, though I did not think that was possible. He speaks of my victories, of the fronts I held when the tacticians had already written them off as lost, of the coalition soldiers who walked home because I did not let them fall. His voice rolls out over the crowd like it is reciting a legend that already stopped belonging to me. Then, he says the words that stop my heart cold. He says the Empire has chosen a gift worthy of my service. He says a woman will be given to me, bonded to my name, mine to keep as reward for the battles I won. I hear murmurs of approval ripple through the hall, as if this is generous, as if this is kind. A side door opens, and she is brought forward. She kneels at the base of the platform, dressed in ceremonial black and silver, her head bowed the way the Empire wants it bowed. Her name, the herald announces, is Shakir, a war priestess of the Veltaran people, one of the few survivors of a homeworld the Empire crushed years before I ever wore a uniform. I look at her, and something in my chest refuses to move forward. I did not ask for this. I did not fight 7 battles to be handed another living being like a piece of salvage. I say no. The word leaves my mouth before I can measure it, and it lands in that enormous hall like a dropped weapon. The Chancellor's smile falters. The council members exchange glances sharp enough to cut. And Shakir lifts her head for the first time, and I realize the fire in her eyes is not fear, it is fury, and it is not aimed at me. Guards move to correct the moment, to smooth it over, but she rises to her feet before anyone can touch her, and the entire hall stiffens. A kneeling gift does not stand on her own, a gift does not speak, but she does. Her voice cuts through the murmuring crowd, calm and edged like a blade drawn slow. She tells the Chancellor that no one asked her whether she wished to be given away either. The silence that follows is heavier than the first. I am escorted out soon after. The ceremony ended in confusion rather than triumph, and I go looking for her the moment I am free of the Chancellor's aides. I find her in an antechamber, standing at a tall window that looks out over the capital's endless towers, her arms crossed, her posture rigid enough to hold up a wall. I tell her I am sorry, that I never wanted this, that I will find a way to release her from whatever claim the Empire thinks it made. She turns and studies me, the way a soldier studies unfamiliar ground, searching for the trap. She tells me I misunderstand everything. Among her people, a bond like this is not ownership. It is a claim between equals, chosen freely, never forced. The Empire took a sacred custom from her shattered culture and twisted it into a spectacle, a reward to dangle in front of a war hero, and in doing so, it stripped away the one part that ever made it meaningful, which is her choice. I ask her what choice she means. She tells me she has watched my campaign since the 3rd battle, long before the Empire ever noticed my name. She watched through the scattered reports her people still receive, watched a human officer hold a line that should have broken, again and again, for soldiers who were not even his own. She says she made her choice long before tonight. What she resents is that the Empire took her decision and performed it like a puppet show, denying her the dignity of saying it herself. I do not know what to say to that, so I ask her plainly what she wants me to do. She tells me she does not want to be released like a debt paid off. She does not want to be quietly reassigned to some diplomatic posting where she can be produced for photographs and treaties. She wants the choice to be hers, spoken aloud, on her own terms, not the Empire's. I spend the next 2 days pulling at threads I probably should have left alone, and what I find makes my stomach turn colder than any battlefield ever did. The gift was never about honoring me. Shakir's bloodline carries weight among the last free settlements of her people, the remnant government still holding out beyond the Empire's official borders. A union between her and a celebrated human officer is exactly the kind of symbol that could pressure those settlements toward a treaty they would otherwise never sign. I am not being rewarded. I am being used as a tool, and so is she, and the Empire expected both of us to smile for the cameras and never notice the strings. When I bring this to her, she does not look surprised. She tells me she suspected as much the moment she was summoned to Core World. Her people have learned, at great cost, exactly how the Empire spends the lives of those it claims to honor. I ask her what she intends to do about it, and for the first time since I met her, something like a smile crosses her face, thin and sharp as a blade catching light. She tells me her people have an old law, rarely invoked, that once a bond is declared freely before witnesses, no outside authority can dissolve it, not even the Empire that conquered her homeworld. If she speaks the words herself, publicly, on her own terms, the Council loses its leverage entirely. They cannot use a bond they no longer control. I tell her that sounds like she is choosing to walk into the very trap they built, just from a different angle. She tells me that is exactly what she intends. The difference is that this time, she is the one setting the terms, not the one dragged forward on her knees. We request an audience with the War Council 2 days later. The Chancellor is clearly expecting gratitude, some quiet acceptance that will let the whole embarrassing scene from the ceremony fade into a footnote. Instead, I stand beside Shakir in front of the same council that tried to hand her to me like cargo, and I tell them plainly that I will not accept a gift that was never freely given, not by me, and not by her. The council members shift, uncomfortable, clearly unprepared for a hero to refuse his reward in front of witnesses who matter. One of them warns that refusing in honor of the Empire carries consequences, that my reputation and my standing among the coalition forces could suffer for such defiance. Before I can answer, Shakir steps forward. She speaks the old words of her people, clear and unshaken, declaring her bond to me not as property given by an empire, but as a choice made by her own will, witnessed now by the very council that tried to strip that will away. The hall falls into the same heavy silence it held during the ceremony, except this time, the silence belongs to her. The Chancellor's expression flickers between anger and calculation, and I watch him realize, in real time, that the law she just invoked is real, and binding, and now impossible to undo without exposing exactly how the Empire intended to use us both. Overturning her declaration publicly would mean admitting the entire gift was a political maneuver, dressed up as an honor, and no council survives that kind of humiliation in front of the coalition worlds. He recovers his composure slowly, forcing a smile that does not reach his eyes, and announces that the Empire is, of course, delighted to honor such a rare and sacred bond. The murmurs that follow through the hall sound relieved rather than approving, the sound of a crisis quietly avoided rather than a triumph celebrated. We are dismissed without further ceremony, and I do not think either of us minds. Outside, the capital stretches wide under a sky streaked orange with the dying light, towers rising on every side like a forest grown from metal instead of wood. Shakir walks beside me, no guards trailing her now, no ceremonial robes weighing down her shoulders, just her own steady steps matching mine. I ask her if she regrets any of it, the declaration, the risk, tying her name to a stranger in front of the very people who destroyed her world. She tells me she does not regret choosing. What she refused to accept was being chosen for, as though her voice did not matter, as though survival alone had already spent whatever say she had left in her own life. I tell her I understand that better than she might think. 7 battles taught me that surviving something is not the same as controlling it, and that the moment people stop asking what you want is the moment they stop seeing you as a person at all. She looks at me for a long moment, and something in her expression softens, just slightly, just enough. She tells me the Empire wanted a gift they could put on display, a symbol they could use, and forget once it stopped being useful. What they got instead was 2 people who refused to be spent that way, standing together because they chose to, not because anyone told them to. I do not have a clever answer for that, so I simply nod, and we keep walking, as the last light fades over the towers, two survivors of an empire that tried to own us both, and failed.